Our last topic for this unit is going to revolve around something called completing the square. At this point, you've seen vertex form and standard form, and you know how to go from vertex to standard just by following BEDMAS and doing some basic mathematical steps. But we don't know how to go the other direction, and that's what we're going to be focusing on. So completing the square is the process of converting standard form to vertex form. And it just involves some standard steps that you're going to follow every single time. So let's start with an example. And we'll say we'll go with y equals x squared plus 6x plus 5. Depending on the polynomial that you're dealing with, completing the square might be a little bit easier or a little bit harder. So for the more complicated ones, we're going to need a couple of extra steps, but we'll cover that in a different video. So for one like this, step 1 is to group your x squared term and your x term together. So this is the easiest step because you don't really have to actually do anything. So we've now got y equals x squared plus 6x, and I want to group those by putting brackets around them, and then plus 5. Not much changed. Step 2 is actually the hardest step in terms of logic. It's the only one where you kind of just have to make something up as you go. So step 2 is we take the coefficient of the x term, which in this case is going to be 6. Then we're going to divide it by 2. And then we're going to square it. So we take 6, we divide it by 2, and we get 3. And then we're going to take that 3 and square it to get 9. This makes no sense right now. Don't worry about it. I'll explain it a little more in depth later when it actually kind of makes sense where we're at in the equation. So now that we've got this 9, I'm just going to underline it so we don't forget. We're going to take that number, again, which is 9, and we're going to add it and subtract it inside of our brackets. So we take our quadratic in standard form. So we've got y equals x squared plus 6x. And then we're going to take the 9 and we're going to add 9. And we're going to subtract 9 inside those brackets. Don't forget the plus 5 at the end. The reason we have to add it and subtract it is because it doesn't affect the overall value. So if you think of our function as a scale with a balance, we can't affect the overall value of this thing by just adding something. So we need to subtract as well to keep things in line. Now that we've done that, the most complicated stuff is actually over. So now we're going to take the negative term and we're going to move it out of the brackets. You might be wondering why we didn't just put it outside of the brackets in the first place. There is a reason. And it'll make more sense once you watch the next video. So here we've got y equals x squared plus 6x plus 9, and then plus 5, and we've moved the minus 9 out. So things are starting to shape up. We're almost done. Step 5 is we factor the brackets. So you did a lot of factoring last year, and hopefully you recognize that x squared plus 6x plus 9 is a perfect square. That means when we factor it, we'll actually get 2 of the same factor. So the easiest way to factor it is it's actually just going to be half of this. So we get x plus, and then half of 6 is 3. Because if you think back to your factoring, we want two numbers that multiply to 9 and add to 6. Well, 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 plus 3 is 6. So our last step is to simplify. We've got y equals x squared plus 6x plus 9 plus 5 and minus 9. And so we put it all together. We've got y equals x plus 3 squared and minus 4. So the reason that we added and subtracted that 9 inside the brackets is because we needed to turn this thing into a perfect square, because we know in our vertex form we have some set of brackets being squared. And so here we are. It's now in vertex form. So if we wanted to graph this, it would be much easier to do it now than it would have been to do it before. We also can now figure out where the vertex is and do a bunch of other things. So let's try doing one more of these together, and then you'll try one of them on your own. So we're going to now look at y equals x squared minus 10x plus 8. So we'll go through all of our steps. So step 1, you'll remember, was just to put some brackets up. So we've got y equals x squared minus 10x inside brackets and plus 8. And so now we take that x coefficient, which is 10. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And 5 squared is 25. So that's the number that we're going to be adding and subtracting inside of our brackets. So we've got y equals x squared minus 10x plus 25 and minus 25 and plus 8. So we've done the squaring, the adding, the subtracting. So now we need to take that negative 25 and move it out. So we've got y equals x squared minus 10x plus 25, and then plus 8 minus 25. We're always going to move the negative term out, no matter what. And now we can finish this off. So we factor our set of brackets. We need two numbers that multiply to 25 and add to negative 10. So if you think multiplying to 25, the only thing that's going to do it is 5 times 5. But specifically, we need to be careful with this negative here. So instead of being x plus 5, it's going to be x minus 5. It's always just going to be half of your x coefficient. Don't forget to put the square on it. And then 8 minus 25 is negative 17. So let's try one more of these that you can do on your own, and that will be the end of the video. So you've got y equals x squared minus 8x minus 9. So pause the video here, try this one out, and then come back once you're done. All right, welcome back. Let's give this one a shot and see how you did. So once again, our first step is to put brackets around our first two terms. Once we've done that, we divide our x coefficient by 2 and square it. So negative 8 divided by 2. You don't have to write it off to the side, but if you need to keep track of things, it can be helpful, is negative 4. And then if we square negative 4, be careful. Remember, if you square a negative, you do get a positive. So we get 16. So we've got x squared minus 8x plus 16 and minus 16. And then we have minus 9 at the end. We move the negative term out. So we get x squared minus 8x plus 16 still being in the brackets. And then we have the minus 9 and the minus 16 on the outside. And we factor and simplify to get x minus 4 squared minus 25. And there we are. So that is how you convert standard form to vertex form. One thing to keep in mind, you might have noticed none of our polynomials that we were dealing with had an a value up at the front. They all just had a as being 1. So if you do have an a value that does complicate things, that's what we'll see in the next video. Also keep in mind, these numbers that you get when you divide and square and stuff won't always be nice numbers. They might be decimals, they might be fractions. The process is still exactly the same, you just have to be a little bit more careful. So check out the next video to see how to do this in the harder version, and otherwise, good luck.